Hey guys, welcome back to the Camps channel. This is a cool review today because you get to see kind of the evolution of the Diatone Cube, and some of you might not have seen the original GTB 229 review that I did a while back, that I had to do some modded upgrades. You can see this one on the left right here has the Runcam Nano 2 on there with my own quick mount that I put on there, just kind of a temporary setup with the AX22 antenna on there. Now, they've gone a long ways with this. This was originally a collaboration with Kebab FPV, and everybody knows him as the originator of the Toothpick term, which is super cool. The Toothpick is a super lightweight brushless quad that is hyper light and able to do some larger style micro brushless flying, which is really neat. So you have a great power to weight ratio with these quads and a ton of punch out, and with the 3x2 props you have a nice float, which is kind of a nice combo. But what I prefer between these two quads has to be hands down the 3x2 by HQ, and I've shown you guys these props before, mainly because these are way more durable than these. These are my Pyro Drone 65mm props that Surge sent over for testing, and those did good. They're just not quite as durable or stiff as the larger 3-inch HQs. And I've talked about stiff before. The stiffer the prop, the less vibes in the flight control you're going to get on these smaller quads. Now, some big changes occurred in this GTB evolution up to the Cube that we have now on the right. Right now you have a really nice flying quad. It's fast, it's floaty, and it has all of the great specs on here. The changes that they made are very drastic. Originally with the GTB 229, we had a plastic canopy. Also on the 329 that you saw reviewed on the channel, they had this sort of cheap plastic camera mount, and it had a really bad camera in there with sort of an AIO type camera from like 2 years ago. It was really mushy looking, and it was terrible. So what I did was I tore mine apart and I put the Runcam Nano 2 on there, and it was like night and day difference. And I believe I showed you guys that back in that original 329 review. The biggest changes that we have here on this version of the quad is the TPU canopy as well, and getting rid of that little plastic canopy and making the camera change. But let's talk about the current iteration, the 339, where we're at today with this one. If you have never seen this frame before, this is a fairly amazing frame to look at in person. And I can't even really show you how awesome these frames are on YouTube, but let me just zoom into the frame here a little bit. We've got bracing, sort of I call it the ham sandwich design. It's sort of a flat square with bracing all the way around, front and back, left and right. But it feels really extremely rigid in your hands. When you hold this frame in your hands, some guys didn't even think that it was carbon. It's so thin, and you wouldn't expect that carbon this thin would be as durable as it is. It's extremely durable. And there's that 2-bolt configuration HQ 3x2 prop. They're 1105 Mamba, and it took some hits in my reviews because you guys know I fly full throttle a lot. 1105 5500 kV Mambas with the closed bottom design and 3 bolts on the bottom. And I got to mention that the Diatone hardware is some of the nicest hardware that you'll find on any bind and fly quads. They actually give you a ton of extras in the box, which I think is really, really nice. And I'm kind of a big fan of that orange motor wire that they use. And these are not plug-and-play motors as well. They're not plugged in. They're actually soldered to the ESC right there, which is really nice. If you look up front on the quad's frame, you can see that gold USB port right there, and that's where you're going to hook it up to Betaflight. That's the Mamba F411 Nano 16mm flight controller, and it looks like they have dampening from the bottom all the way to the top. And the only thing that is a little bit difficult about working on these quads is all of the dampened O-rings that they have on these. When you take this apart, these little O-rings go everywhere. So it's my recommendation, if you're going to work on this quad, put some type of towel down or something, because when you take this apart, they will bounce off your bench and go to the floor, and you'll never ever find them again. Just one thing there. We also have 13 amp, it says 4S D-Shot 600 ESCs on there, but this quad for me was only good on 2 and 3S. Around 4S, it just starts to get the wobbles. So I'm going to recommend that you guys stick to 2 and 3S on this. And I'm also happy to say that they use the TBS Unify Pro 32 Nano on there as well. A very nice VTX with smart audio, all the bells and whistles that you could possibly want. It does have a UFL connector on the front of that. You can see just underneath the camera right here. I'll just zoom in and show you guys. You can see that little gold connector right there is your UFL connector, and that goes to your dipole in the back. This is kind of a generic dipole. If you want to upgrade that to something like the AX2 like I did before, that's probably going to be a better antenna. And for whatever reason on mine had a lot of interference when I was flying. I don't know if someone was out flying a freaking Phantom somewhere, or maybe sometimes the Hubsan larger drones that they have, like that are kind of the Phantom competitor, they run on 5.8, and they're usually cranking like 700 milliwatt or something crazy. So I had some odd interference, and I tried moving around the power connectors here, and it helped a little bit, but I still had interference. Now what's also kind of cool, guys, is that you can run the RXSR receiver on here, and it will just plug into this port right here. They give you all the cables in the box, which is nice. So I didn't have to do any soldering to get my RXSR receiver on there. It's already on there, and it's even labeled. You can see it's labeled S-Bus right there. There's a little tiny tag on it, and I left that there to show you guys, which is kind of cool. It says PPM on there too, but you're not going to use PPM. Sorry guys, we've got to measure this weight real quick before we go out and fly. It's 61.5 grams. I always like to show you guys the weight before we go out and fly, and this one happens to be under 70 grams. So it is a very competitive weight for something running 1105s with 3-inch 3x2 HQ props. A very, very lightweight quad, and I'm expecting extreme performance on a 2 and a 3S battery. And I think that where this one is best is around the 3S configuration. For 3S 650 is probably the best choice for this quad. Here we go. Okay, my friends, let's go out, and once I get it configured, we will take off and do our first battery. This is the first battery, and check out the interference. I swear to God, some guy with a stupid 5.8 drone was somewhere close to me flying something like some kind of big 700 milliwatt freaking Hubsan or something. I don't know, but it will clear up in a second. And I also move the wires inside the canopy. Maybe sometimes the power wire for something else gets too close to the dipole antenna, and that could be the case, or it's sitting on a sensitive spot on the TBS Unify Pro. But on my next battery, this went away. But first, what I want you to notice is that I'm quite comfortable with the speed and the power in the 1105 power system on here. This is where you want to be if you want big power on a micro brushless toothpick style quad. The top end of the throttle is crazy. It has plenty of give at the bottom of the loops. No problem to get back up, back around. You can pretty much do anything you want as far as freestyle with these little quads. You can get super creative because they do have a lot of hang time, but this quad happens to be way faster than the previous versions that I reviewed. If you want something that's a little more floaty and a little slower for you, for beginners, I would recommend going for the 65mm prop version. I'll try to put both those links down below. The 1105s for me, they are kind of battery eaters. In a sense, you're going to need to use a much larger battery than you could if you were running the 1103s. The 1103s will be a little bit lighter, slower, be a better trainer type quad for freestyle. You can run the 3S 300 milliamp with that type of power setup, but on the 1105s, like this one, you're going to be running something like a 3S 650, and that battery barely fits the battery strap that Diatone included. So I used some 450s, and I was only getting around 2 minutes flight time on my 3S450s, and maybe they're getting kind of juiced, getting kind of old, but yeah, you can see right here I'm running 2S, and it still performed quite good on 2S. So if you already have a bunch of 2S around the 550 to 650 size batteries, that would be a good choice for just cruising. If you want to have some high-end throttle, go for that 3S 650 and a little bit larger battery strap. You're going to get an upwards of 3 minutes flight time. But you're able to get in there quite nice with this quad. It's a pretty small profile, and you can slow it down a lot too. It does have crazy speed on the high end of the throttle, but right here I'm just backing off the throttle a little bit. I'm going to do some sort of slalom in between these trees right here. Kind of tiny whoop style. Just get in there a little bit. Go around these stumps out here, around the base of the tree. Kind of swing set around things. Kind of fun to do. But overall, a really good flying quad. And I was not surprised how well this quad flies and the performance of it. It's quite good, actually. Let's go back to the studio and do some final thoughts. Alright guys, welcome back from the flight test. You know, it's cool that we have a community that works together on so many different levels to be able to get to where we are today with kind of the R&D and the evolution of things. A lot of the R&D that goes into this is mostly done by pilots themselves, the community, and I think that more work is done by some of the reviewers and some of the test pilots out there than probably even the company itself. As far as the flying testing goes, we really do put a lot of time, like we're not on the clock when we're testing these things out in the field for you guys, and soldering them on the bench and making new versions of their quads and giving them feedback. So I gotta give some big applause to everybody that was involved in the Cube series. I think there's a lot of great input that went into this, and now we're finally to the point where I think this is a solid product that you can buy and not have a whole lot of problems. My only problem with mine was the interference, and it could have been just that day that I went out to fly it and had some terrible interference. But there's no hiding the interference, and I moved the cables around a little bit, but that didn't fix it. So it seemed to be coming from an external source outside the quad. Who knows what that could have been. That field is usually fairly interference free because it's a good distance away from other businesses and things, and a whole lot of neighborhoods and Wi-Fi. So especially the 5.8 routers and things that are in neighborhoods. But now we're probably looking at a quad that I think it's safe to rate this one at about, I'd say about a 4.8 out of 5, taking off a couple points for maybe this dipole antenna in the back. I think this could be a little bit better. But then again, the price is, I think it's around $129 for this quad. So I think it's a really competitive price as far as this one versus the eSheen Twig. The eSheen Twig is probably a little bit better value because you get the Cadex Baby Turtle on board. But I'd say that this canopy is going to be way more durable than the eSheen Twig canopy, which I broke. They do have 3 standoffs on this one in the back, 2 on the sides, and they didn't put the one on the front, but you could add it if you want to. But they didn't add it because it would block your USB port right there. But you could add one later if you wanted to, once you had your PIDs all set up and you knew you didn't need to go back into beta flight. But overall, I'm happy with this evolution, and I think it's great. So cheers out to Kebab FPV and everyone else who worked on this design. I think it's really worth the money. So go spend $130 on this one, and you won't be upset about it. It's a ripper for sure. And if it can survive my flight test, it'll survive yours. But thanks again for watching, guys. I'm Justin Davis. It's been another honest review. Take care, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.